What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2007 mixtape by Block ENT and Boyz N da Hood. Basically, this product is called American Gangsta, and it came out in the spring of 2007. So the thing about this particular product is this is a Gangsta Grillz tape, which means it has DJ drama affiliation. Those are some of the biggest mixtapes around as far as that pitch kind of has with it. This is the fact. So this is kind of the reason why I say it's Block ENT slash Boyz N da Hood is most of these songs on this particular mixtape are from Boyz N da Hood, but it does have some Young Jock affiliation and kind of a decent amount of Grillz. Just the kick off to Grillz, as 2007 was kind of his breakout year, the introduction to Grillz. He wasn't around as much back in late 2006 to 2006 as far as that pitch kind of happened, but he showed up early 2007 as the new member of Boyz N da Hood as they were working on their second album. It's just kind of a pitch like that. There is some after effects of Jeezy on here a little bit, but Jeezy had left the group by probably the fall of 2005. It has in particular, so there's just kind of some in between type moments. This is definitely an interesting aspect, but once again, this is actually by Block ENT. That's the concept behind it. I noticed that not a ton of folks really have the information really out and about Block ENT, which is the label. It was a subsidiary of Bad Boy, which is Puff Daddy's label, which basically Block ENT was a part of Bad Boy South, which is kind of the concept that had some folks like Boyz N da Hood, Young Jock, Grillz on there, probably some other local cats from like the Atlanta area, pitches like that. But it's just kind of the concept that some of these, basically the label Block ENT paid for like the concepts of getting some Gangsta Grillz tapes from DJ Drama and getting those out and marketed as far as that pitch can happen. There's not really a bunch of information known about this. Just kind of the fact that they paid probably the 40,000, 50,000 to get DJ Drama to do as far as that pitch is going to happen. And this is at least the second time where this has happened. They did it in the spring of 2006 with Welcome to My Block, which was another Gangsta Grillz tape that I reviewed back in January. They also did with this project in early 2007, the spring of 2007. But I would have to say in particular, there might be some other ones floating around just because the fact of like the information about Block ENT is kind of minimal. It's just kind of the concept. Really, the places that I went, Discogs, some of those type places, basically said that this is a Boyz N da Hood project, but it's actually by Block ENT. So it's kind of the concept. But I would have to say most of these songs on here are by Boyz N da Hood. So it's just kind of the concept where it's just pseudo project, but it's just kind of an in-between type project to kind of get like some preview Gorilla type tracks, like the occasional Boyz N da Hood individual type tracks, and mainly just like a bunch of Boyz N da Hood type songs and a little bit of Young Jock thrown in, I'd have to say. So it's basically the concept. Young Jock was kind of in a quiet period and Young Jock was kind of in a quiet period in early 2007 after he had his hit platinum selling album New Jock City from 2006. Boyz N da Hood was kind of in an awkward phase. They kind of took a couple years off after like their self-titled Boyz N da Hood album from 2005, but they did drop some mixtapes and pitches like that. I'm going to get to some more of these, but they found Grillz late 2006, early 2007, and they worked on Back Up in the Chevy, which came out in the fall of 2007. It's kind of the concept, just being able to say it. So it's just some extra content to kind of get here, just because of the fact that I didn't realize about a lot of this music back in the day. Boyz N da Hood was pretty quiet just because they only really had truly one hit single on the Billboard charts, which was just Them Boys. The second single, Felonies, didn't do that well, and the rest of the ones, like Everybody Know Me off of Back Up in the Chevy, didn't do that well either. So they basically were more hardcore rap, just more hardcore southern rap and trap music as far as that pitch going. But it is some excellent stuff. Do definitely appreciate this mixtape. I'm going to kind of rank it with 2 scores. I'm going to kind of rank this mixtape with 2 scores just because the fact that the quality of this mixtape is definitely there, but I just feel like some of these songs have kind of some of these songs wound up on like the Young Jock and Boyz N da Hood albums from 2007, so it's not just as much of a pitch anymore as far as that particular kind of happens. The newness factor is not as quite there, but I would have to say there is at least 8 new songs on here out of 12, so I would have to say we'll talk about it. I'll explain that better in a moment. But basically, there's 19 songs on here, but minus the Zoe Speaks interlude and then the American Gangsta intro, there's 17 songs. Out of those 17 songs, 5 of those songs are songs that show up on other projects from 2007, which is Boyz N da Hood, Young Jock, and Grillz, those projects. And so out of the remaining songs, there would be 12 songs. Out of those 12 songs, I wound up recommending 8. So that's kind of the concept of it. So I'm going to go ahead and score this mixtape. I'll just go ahead and score it now just so you can kind of see what I'm talking about. So the mixtape, I'm going to give this mixtape in terms of what I score it nowadays in 2024. I'm going to give the mixtape nowadays like an 8 out of 10, but back in 2007, had I fucked with this project back then, it'd get like a 9.25 because the new songs on here are pretty good. Bite Down's an excellent song. This for Hood Niggas is an excellent song. Grillzo's Hood Niggas is an excellent song. Young Jock's Bottle Poppin's an excellent song. And Everybody Know Me, the lead single from Back Up in the Chevy, is an excellent song. But all of these are just on the other projects. I would just recommend picking up, like Back Up in the Chevy, because that's a pretty excellent album. I reviewed that last fall. It's a pretty excellent project. Kind of an overlooked and underrated project, I'd had to say. Young Jock's Hustlenomics is pretty good, and Grillzo definitely has a damn near classic with Welcome to the Zoo from 2007. So some excellent stuff. Block ENT had a pretty big year in 2007, but I look after just to talk about some of these. On top of that, out of the 12 songs that I'm talking about recommending here that are new music and pitches like that, actually 3 of those songs are particular remixes to songs that had previously happened. So I'm not going to talk about those as much, but I will at least say that they're pretty good. So basically, these songs would be Trap Niggas Remix, Block Star, which is a remix of Party Like a Rockstar, which was a hit song out of 2007, and then Knock It Out remix by Young Jock. So that's kind of the concept about it. Basically, Knock It Out was on Young Jock's New Jock City. It's a pretty good concept. Jody Breeze definitely shreds this particular song. I'll go ahead and recommend the other 5 songs I recommend on here, and then we'll talk about the remixes. So the 5 normal songs that are just new songs, no matter what, that I recommend on here would be Money in the Air by Young Jock, Freeze Up by Boyz N da Hood, Sacking Up by Boyz N da Hood, Boyz N da Hood's True to ATL, and then Boyz N da Hood's Carry My Guns. Those are some pretty excellent ones. Just kind of dissect some of these. So basically, Trap Niggas remix. Basically, the original Trap Niggas had Jody Breeze and Jeezy on there. It was a pretty dope concept to get that one. But basically, on this particular one, Grillzo and Big E are on this particular song. 2 big dogs to be able to have on that particular pitch. It's a nice revamp and it works pretty well. It's a more thunderous type one. Just good, excellent concept kind of gets. I do recommend that one. Blockstar is the Party Like a Rockstar remix, which is a dope enough concept. Nice Party Like a Rockstar revamp. And this is just some summary kind of tipsy fun. Good song to get some drinks in your system. This carries the energy. Young Jock and Grillzo do a pretty good job. Their melodic verses are pretty good just within that relative pitch. They do a good job. And then Big E's on there also. Knock It Out remix is another nice one. Jody Breeze particularly shreds this verse. He does pretty good freestyle. That's a freestyle. Is a nice concept to kind of get that one. It's nice ladies cut type song to kind of get. This nice smash song to kind of have for ladies as far as that pitch kind of happens. This good concept for that. This great song to pick for a remix also. I really enjoyed like the original song of that on Young Jock's album, I'd have to say. So it's dope enough concept. But basically talk about some of these new type songs. So Freeze Up is one of the best songs on this particular album, and it's kind of a surprising hit song here just because you wouldn't expect the affiliation. You just wouldn't expect the affiliation. Basically, T.I.'s on here, Big Country King's on here, and Jeezy's on here in addition to 2 Boyz N da Hood members. So it's a pretty good concept just because Jeezy, for the most part, didn't do too many songs with Boyz N da Hood after 2005. So it's a dope concept getting one of those with the original Boyz N da Hood members in 2007 as far as that pitch kind of happens. And then on top of that, T.I. being with Boyz N da Hood, and he even mentions the Boyz N da Hood members on his particular verse. So it's an actual song that happened. T.I. actually knew about Big E and Big Duke and some of those type folks on the particular song. So it's just a good concept kind of get that. And then Big Country King does the hook on here, which is a good concept he was a part of. PSC, so it's a dope enough concept. But this is basically like a surprising turn-up song with T.I., Boyz N da Hood, and Jeezy all in the same song. I had to say in particular, and this is just like a frenetic kind of club bounce. This is definitely probably like the best song on this particular mixtape. I'd have to say damn near just the overall appeal behind it. It's a real glittering type one. Just a real glittering and just glitzy type one to kind of get here for some easy smokage and just nightclub kickback. I'd have to say in particular, it's a very overlooked Boyz N da Hood type song. I feel like Boyz N da Hood did a lot of things. Another thing that Boyz N da Hood did, which was pretty awesome on the Welcome to My Block mixtape that I talked about that I reviewed back in January. They had a song with Lil Wayne on there, so they got a hit song from him in like his Carter 2 days, which is a pretty good pitch to kind of have. So it's another excellent type concept to get. I would check out that project while it's still kind of around in pitches like that. I'd have to say it's a pretty dope concept. But Freeze Up's a definite nice one. Sacking Up's another nice one. This has Gorilla Zoe on there. This is a pretty good pitch. It's like a gnarled kind of 2000s trap bravado tune of a song. I'd have to say in particular, it's like a feel good kind of loud night outing of a song. I would definitely have to say. This is just like some regular craze. So this one definitely, I mean, yeah, once again, Freeze Up has Jeezy on there, so it's just a nice touch to kind of get some last batches of Boyz N da Hood and Jeezy type songs that the chemistry of that particular song works pretty well. But yeah, on Sacking Up, this particular one, Sacking Up is definitely some good trap bravado, pretty similar to like Jeezy's Trap Star, some pitches like that. Just a standard kind of 2000s type night fair, the sort of song that like Future would do with like Same Damn Time, just some of that high octane type energy. It's just a good night, just really having some riveting type energy just within the relative pitch behind it. It's a nice one to kind of get some drinks in your system, some pitches like that, get the women twerking, some of those type fairs as far as that particular kind of goes. It's a real nice one to kind of have, just glitzy kind of one to kind of have. I mean, this one somewhat shows its age in terms of that. This particular song reeks of like 2000s ones type fare, kind of like Swagga Like Us, some of those type ones. It's more traditional trap within that relative sense, but it is a pretty stellar one. Definitely appreciate this one. Liked Young Jock and Grillz though being on this particular song. It's an excellent concept. Carry My Gun's a pretty nice one. This is an offhanded type one. It's a whimsical and kind of peppy, but still grimy kind of summer bounce of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This one has some uptown funk about it, I would definitely have to say, and this is just a good city hop kind of jive. Carry My Gun is definitely a nice one for being in the wind and pitches like that. Just some good hangout type fare, just out on the town pitches like that. Just some good summery type energy. I would almost have to say just some local residential typeness of just picking up some Taco Bell, some pitches like that. Just standard summer type fare, just getting some switchers, some of those type things. Just relative just aspects of this summer breeze and just things like that. I mean, it's a grimier type tune. It is got some thug rugged. It does have some thug ruggedness as far as that pitch gun goes, but it is a nice one. Just the bounce of the particular production is just differential. Not too many Boyz N da Hood songs were really like this that I say, so it's a dope enough concept. The Young Jock song Money in the Air is definitely a nice one. There definitely need to be more Young Jock songs on here. I'm surprised that he kind of was so lighthearted on here. I'm surprised that Young Jock was so light-winded on this particular project. I mean, a lot of these, Young Jock is on here more than 2 or 3 times. This is kind of the concept that he doesn't really give this project any songs of his own, which is kind of a disappointment because I like the aspect of just wondering what Young Jock was up to when he was working on Hustlenomics. I mean, he had a #1 with the song he had with T-Pain, which was Buy You a Drink, but I definitely question some of the concepts of what he was doing January, February 2007, some of those type pitches. Apparently, he had created that Pac-Man character around that time because that Pac-Man character that was kind of on the song Pac-Man from Hustlenomics is on this particular song. Nice touch to kind of get that, just some extra kind of Pac-Man songs just for that particular theme and just gimmick that particular was. But this is like a Liddy kind of strip club and night outing of a song. And this is a Liddy kind of strip club and night outing Kickstarter of a song that has the same particular, and this is just some balanced kind of night drive. So this one's a little bit more plain in terms of like the aspect. It's not plain in terms of quality, but just plain in terms of the concept of like the relative craziness. I definitely feel like Freeze Up and Sacking Up are some more kind of crazy type ones. Carry My Gun definitely has some whimsical bounce about it, and I feel like True to ATL this has some of that relative sludgy type appeal just within the aspect. This is the most basic type one. It's kind of an in-between Young Jock type song that I just don't think is commonly talked about. Once again, I feel like he was kind of quiet. He kind of did some mixtapes in 2006. 2006 was a pretty big year for Young Jock, but pretty much like the first 5 or 6 months of 2007, just really not much happened from Young Jock apart from like that T-Pain song. So it's just kind of the concept. It's an interesting aspect to get some of this. It's kind of a good format, but I would definitely like some more Young Jock songs on here. He is on here a number of times, but just not enough in terms of like his own typical songs. It would have been a nice concept to see what he could have done. But this is like a gimmick song that says the Pac-Man character on there. Young Jock has the verse on the third verse. There's a chick on the song. Don't know who that is. Not really sure. Once again, the problem with this particular mixtape is just the fact there's not a ton of information. It just says that this song is by Young Jock. Doesn't say that the other folks that are on this song. So that's this kind of concept. But it is a pretty balanced kind of late 2000s kind of relatively commercial kind of pep of a song. This one just has a little bit. This one's kind of radio ready just for like a mixtape type fare, so it's a pretty good concept. Kind of get that. Just some good kind of commercial MySpace rap type club bounce, I'd have to say, so it's a good concept for that. True to ATL is a pretty nice one. It's like a low key kind of neighborhood sludge of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a social kind of smoke a few. This is definitely like a social kind of smoke a few tune, I'd have to say in particular. And it's like a good local errand and gathering type song to kind of get. So it's just some basic concepts of like some house party type crazes, pitches like that, getting things started, picking up like a beer cakes and pitches like that, some good, getting like some Crown Royal, some pitchers of beers and things like that, just in particular as far as that particular kind of happens. 30 packs is what I say. It's a good concept. Just the relative sludginess of this particular one. I mean, with this group being called Boyz N da Hood, you would think that they would have some local kind of neighborhood type stuff, and a lot more of this stuff would be more residential. There are some nightclub songs in here, but it's just good to get some of these residential type ones, just that typical kind of appeal, hitting up the gas station, getting some things like that, getting some swishers, some of those type pitches, just would have to say. So this really has the excellent type of appeal, some of that. It could also just be errand running, just in particular, like I was saying with it being localized and pitches like that. If you're just on foot or just in a relative car breeze, just typical, just only going to take like 15 or 18 minutes or 22 minutes, something like that. So it's a dope enough concept, kind of get some of that taken care of. And this really works pretty well. So that's the concept. So that's the concept about this particular mixtape. So to talk about the really only 4 songs I don't recommend on here. So basically, I really didn't appreciate the production at all on the backup in the Chevy type one. This is pretty much like the worst production. This had one of the worst productions on the whole tape, I'd have to say in particular. I feel like backup in the Chevy was trying to have some similar pep to like Carry My Gun and some of those type ones, with a little bit of like the localized type fare True to ATL, but it just didn't really nail it quite as well as it probably needed to. It was just kind of one. It was a 6-minute song on top of that. This is one of the few songs that has all 4 of the Boyz N da Hood members on there. It has Grillz, Big Gee, Big Duke, and Jody Breeze on there. So it's just kind of a concept, but not tons of songs really did that particular format. But unfortunately, it was just kind of a lengthy list, and the production pair was just not interesting or really compelling. I'm glad that this song didn't really wind up on the project, because there is a song called "This Back Up in the Chevy." Is basically the name of their second album. But this particular song didn't advertise the album that well. Jody Breeze's J to the O is just not a very compelling type one. It kind of had like this one kind of had like a balmy type production on there that just didn't work that well. I've noticed that some of Jody Breeze's productions are a little bit more offhanded, more whimsical. I'd have to say he kind of did that with like his original songs on like the Welcome to My Block project from Block ENT from 2006. But I want to say one of those I gave like an almost song, but this one just didn't really have like the true aspect of really being one I would return to that much. Just didn't really see the compellingness of it. It's not like it's a horrible song. It's not a bad and awful production. This overall song composition just didn't really have much that jumped off the page. The Young Jock remix, Flip Flop, was not much of an addition. Just had Boyz N da Hood and Rick Ross on there. It was the same production. Really, I kind of felt like Flip Flop from New Jock City was one of the few songs I didn't full-blown vibe with. Was just kind of one decent kind of one, but just the production type fare between talking about cars and women on the particular song just didn't really have like the sort of appeal that just was really that aspect. I mean, maybe the original Young Jock song was a little bit better, but once again, I just feel like Young Jock probably should have had more verses on that particular song. It was just kind of a posse type song that just was kind of clumsy, and the more execution of having a song like that for as many folks that were kind of on the song. And then there's one other song on here. Oh yeah, Gorilla Zoe's song, which is basically just Gorilla Zoe's just basically like an instrumental remix to Mike Jones's Mr. Jones, which just didn't really nail it as well. I mean, Lil Wayne knocked this song out of the park when he did Ride for My Niggas off of his The Drought 3, but Gorilla Zoe just didn't nail it nearly as well as like Lil Wayne did in particular. It's just trying to make it like a more kind of Zoe type song with his like his typical affair that he did in 2007, but it just didn't really have the same vibe or the overall pitch that it needed. It's just not the sort of production or fare that Gorilla Zoe really needed. I feel like his particular style was just better. I don't know if Mike Jones particularly suits Gorilla Zoe's style, but that was just not a good example. That was just not the real mixture for that. So that's the concept about this particular mixtape. So the Block ENT mixtape here, American Gangsta, I'm basically going to have to say I'm going to give this mixtape nowadays like an 8 out of 10, but back in 2007 with all these new songs that I probably would have liked back in those days, it would get like a 9.25. It's just kind of the concept. Nowadays it gets an 8. Definitely some good stuff on here. There's some secret Boyz N da Hood songs. Like I said, that T.I., Big Country King, and Jeezy song's a pretty excellent one. Freeze Up's this real excellent type fare. Sacking out some pretty nice ones. There's just some secret Boyz N da Hood type songs on here that have some of that good appeal and this overall aspects that just really work for it. Just some kind of ones, if you know everything by Boyz N da Hood or you don't really know them that well, but you'd like to find some more stuff after the 2 albums get kind of tiresome, it's just an excellent concept, because a lot of these are just residential type fare. There's in-between type moments of either nightclub bounce or just things that kind of have like, just things that either have like nightclub bounce or more localized type traverse as far as that pitch can have. It's just more typical formats, because I feel like a lot of these, I just would have to say Boyz N da Hood didn't have as many traverse and this kind of more air and running type tunes on like their album from 2005, self-titled. Some of those type ones, like when I think of Trap Niggas or Felonies or some of those type songs, or Still Slizzard, and like Still Slizzard was at least like a good kind of get turn. Still Slizzard was just kind of a good after effect of a song, but for the most part, it didn't really have those residential type ones for air and running and just the local effects of just picking up like some beers and pitches like that, I'd have to say. So it's just a good concept, just some in between and a summer fair and just outing type fair for like local kind of residential type stuff, and just some good nightclub bounce on the weekends or just standard day fair, just pitches like that when you don't have as much to do or responsibility. So it's a good concept. Pretty balanced project overall. I'd have to say the rappers on this particular album just nail it pretty well. This is just like southern hip hop to a T as far as that pitch kind of goes. Young Jock, Gorilla Zoe in their prime, Boyz N da Hood in their prime. Big Gee does some real good stuff. I mean, the really only thing about this particular project is just that 2 members on here. Jody Breeze is on here at least a few times, but really the member, once again, that's just not on here that much is just Big Duke. He kind of, even on this particular project, is not on here a ton of times. I really want to say that there's only really like 3 songs on here that he's on a bunch, which is just like True to ATL, Carry My Gun, and then Back Up in the Chevy. So it's just kind of the concept of if you don't like some of the songs that Big Duke is on, he's really not on there a ton. Gorilla Zoe's kind of on here more. Big Gee's probably on here the most, and I would say Jody Breeze is on here the second most, but it's just kind of the concept that you don't get a ton of songs that have all 4 of the members, or just often late getting in with that sort of display, I suppose. So it's just kind of the concept. But the social score, I'm going to go ahead and give like a 9 out of 10. I kind of feel like the social score gets a 9 just because it has some quality stuff on here. I would give it a 10 if it had less recycled songs, just the pitch behind it. But I just would have to say in particular, there's tons of good outing type appeal about this particular product. There's not many moments that are does in terms of the aspect of quelling the energy or just delivering something that just kind of screws up things in terms of the momentum as far as that particular kind of happens. There's just plenty of excellent type stuff to kind of get here. Once again, this residential type stuff and then this outing type stuff really works. So it's like a nice blend, especially for 2007 as far as that pitching goes. It was kind of an overlooked mixtape. Definitely fuck with Block ENT and Boyz N da Hood and some of these type folks, I'd have to say. So in terms of the future, like Block ENT, I think the label has kind of dried up. I don't think there's really any artists left. The label might still be around, but they haven't really put out anything. Gangsta Grillz and mixtapes don't really happen as much nowadays. I mean, I think Gangsta Grillz tapes still occasionally do, but in terms of like free mixtape type fare, it just doesn't happen as much. Young Jock hasn't done music in a while. Grillzo hasn't done music in a while. Boyz N da Hood the group is kind of dried up, I'd have to say, but this is definitely a pretty damn near classic of a project here. I definitely say for a 2000s mixtape, this is definitely on the verge of being a classic. I feel like this is up there with Jeezy's Trap or Die. Some of those type ones. It's up there with like Welcome to My Block and some of those type pitches in particular. It's definitely one of the more compelling 2000s mixtapes I'd have to say. Has a lot of good stuff on here, a lot of good residential and just overall just evening outing and just got done with work shift type of feel that has a lot of good affability about it. So it's an easy project to recommend. Overlooked for the most part. I would definitely recommend fucking with it and just realizing that despite the low key factor and the relative lack of success that Boyz N da Hood kind of got, it's still worth investing in.